So, when a marriage ends, the house is often the single biggest financial asset on the table. And honestly, the biggest question mark. In this explainer, we're going to break down how a property appraisal can give you that clear, unbiased answer you need to move forward.
Look, your home is more than just bricks and mortar, right? It's filled with memories. But when it comes to a legal settlement, the courts, well, they need a number. So how do you translate years of your life into a fair market value? That's the big challenge we're going to get into right now.
And that's really where this whole thing kicks off, finding a fair value. It's all about taking this one big shared asset, the home, and landing on a number that hopefully everyone can agree on. This is where a professional appraisal becomes, well, absolutely essential.
Okay, so what is a property appraisal in a divorce? What are we really talking about here? Well, it's a formal professional evaluation. Its whole job is to determine the fair market value, what a willing buyer would actually pay for it, so that the asset can be divided fairly between both people.
Think of it like this. The appraisal is kind of like a bridge. It takes all that emotion, all the guesswork, and the he said, she said out of the equation and just boils it down to one objective, neutral number. This number becomes the foundation that everyone, the couple, their attorneys, the court, can use to build a fair settlement.
Okay, that sounds great in theory, right? But how does it actually work? Let's walk through the step-by-step process of how an appraiser gets to that final, crucial number.
So it really boils down to 5 key steps. First up, you've got to pick an appraiser. Then they come out and do a detailed physical inspection of the property. A specific valuation date gets set by the lawyers, and then the appraiser does a deep dive into the market, looking at what similar homes nearby have sold for. Finally, all of that gets bundled into a detailed formal report for the court.
And you're probably wondering, how long does all this take? Well, it's not instant, but it's pretty efficient. From the day of that inspection to getting the final report in your hands, you're usually looking at about 7 to 10 business days.
All right, so now you've got the report. You've got that magic number. What's next? Well, now you use that appraised value to calculate the actual equity, and that's the part that really gets divided.
And here's a really important point. You don't actually split the appraised value itself. Nope, that's just the starting point. It's the number you use to figure out the actual marital equity in the property. And the math is actually pretty straightforward. Let's use this example here. You take the appraised value, say $750,000. You subtract what's left on the mortgage, in this case $500,000, and boom, what's left over? That $250,000 is the total equity. That's the actual pie you're dividing up. So what usually happens next? Well, that equity gets split. In our example, that's $125,000 for each person. Usually, this means the person who wants to stay in the house has to buy out the other person's share, often by refinancing the mortgage. But let's be real. It's not always that simple, is it? I mean, what happens when two people who are already disagreeing disagree on this number too? Let's get into that.
And this is such a classic scenario. You see it all the time. One person's thinking, hey, the house is worth way more. Remember all those upgrades we did? While the other is saying, hold on, it needs a new roof and the market's down. Both sides can feel totally right, and that's exactly where these disputes catch fire.
The good news is there are actual structured ways to sort this out. You could get a second appraisal, but sometimes that just turns into a battle of the experts. A really common move is to have the court appoint its own appraiser. The key here is that this person is totally neutral. They work for the court, not for either spouse. Beyond that, you can use mediation to find a middle ground, or if all else fails, a judge will look at the evidence and make the final call.
Okay, let's get down to the bottom line. What's this going to cost and what are the main takeaways here?
So for the cost, you're generally looking at a range of about $650 to $850 for a standard divorce appraisal. Though, that can change depending on how big or complicated the property is.
And who foots the bill? A lot of the time, it's just split 50-50. But it's also pretty common for the spouse who's planning to keep the house to cover the whole fee as part of their refinancing process.
If there's one thing to really take away from all this, it's this. An appraisal isn't about one person winning and the other losing. It's about getting a neutral, objective number that acts as the bedrock for a fair and equitable settlement for everyone. So at the end of the day, this whole process is designed to land on an objective number, something you can put in a spreadsheet and divide. But it does leave you with a final thought, doesn't it? For a place that's filled with so much life and so many memories, can a single number ever truly capture its value?